Hello, everyone. My name is Jerzy Biernacki, and I'm head of operations at Miquido, a full-service software development partner. And welcome to AA Waves. It's already the 6th edition of this event. And for those of you who don't know it yet, AA Waves is a series of webinars organized by Miquido, where we are focusing on the latest developments in tech and the opportunities they bring to the businesses. And today we'll speak about NFTs and the Metaverse and the value they bring to various industries. But before we start, I have a few important things for you to know. The first is that this event is recorded, so you don't need to worry if you occasionally miss something, because you will get the recording after the session. Actually, it will be sent to you by the end of this week, so remember to check your inbox. And the second thing is that if you have any questions for our experts at any time during the panel, you can just type them on the chat, and we'll gather them all and bring them up at the Q&A session, which will happen at the end of the panel. And now I guess it's time to introduce our amazing speakers. So let's meet our first guest, who is Genevieve Leveille. Genevieve is the CEO and principal founder of AgriLedger,
go on.
An award-winning blockchain solutions company offering equitable and sustainable solutions to challenges being faced across the agricultural value chain. Genevieve is a social impact entrepreneur who has spoken at numerous conferences globally on emerging technologies. She also has been recognized multiple times for her work in technology and decentralized finance, including being named one of the most influential women in UK tech by Computer Weekly in 2021 and nominated for Top BAME in Technology UK by Financial Times in 2019. She currently serves as Vice Chair of Tech UK's Distributed Ledger Technology Working Group and is a non-executive director and board member of FinTech for International Development. Hello, Genevieve. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be part of such an illustrious group also.
Okay, so let's move on to the second speaker, Irina Karagyaur. Irina is the head of ecosystem growth and business development at Unique Network, where she leads the business ecosystem growth activities for the organization. She focuses on establishing strategic partnerships and ecosystem building to enable bridging the off-chain world with the open metaverse. She is the head ambassador for Western Europe of the Polkadot Network and also London's regional co-chair to Foundation for International Blockchain and Real Estate Expertise, as well as the coordinator of the Digital Art for Climate initiative. Irina co-founded BQ9, a crypto fintech boutique advisory firm that focuses on NFTs and other Web 3.0 services. With over 10 years of experience, she has established herself as an international business development professional in strategic partnerships, analysis of foreign markets, and business planning in Europe. Hi, Irina. It's my honor to welcome you here. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think there's a bit of a delay in the mute. Thank you, everybody, for joining. It's a true pleasure to share this panel with our experts today, and looking forward to insightful discussion.
It will be. So, and our next expert was supposed to be Yael Tamar. Unfortunately, due to some unexpected circumstances, she can't attend this webinar. But the good news is that she found a worthy replacement for her. So our third speaker is an NFT expert, Osnat Zaretsky, who is a co-founder and CEO of AlsoMine, an NFT-focused tech startup. A proven business leader, ex-Accenture, ex-WPP, and ex-EY, and serial entrepreneur. Osnat has worked within the digital innovation, tech, and blockchain space across multiple industries and spoke at many events and had numerous TV appearances. She was also cited in Businessweek, Financial Times, and the Sunday Times over the course of the last 15 years. She regularly lectures on NFTs and other blockchain applications at C-level corporate events and webinars. So, Osnat, we're glad to have you on board.
Happy to be here. Hopefully, you will not be disappointed with me being a replacement.
No, we won't. It's a pleasure to have you here. And last but not least, please meet our host and moderator, Krzysztof Kogutkiewicz. Chris is the CEO of Nextbank, a leading cloud core banking provider in Southeast Asia. Nextbank offers a credit scoring system that implements a new approach to credit risk assessment using machine learning. The Nextbank's banking solutions were shortlisted for Singapore FinTech Awards several times and finally won the second place for the best FinTech startup in 2020. In addition to his duties at Nextbank, Chris is also the CEO of Miquido, a software development partner that specializes in building mobile, web, and machine learning solutions. In 2020, Chris was featured in the 40 Under 40 ranking by Mobile App Daily, among other influential young leaders. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much, Jerzy. Thanks for having me here again.
Thanks for hosting and moderating the event again. And it's time to move to the main part of our event, the panel discussion. And our guests will speak about NFT and Metaverse opportunities in business, while Chris will moderate their discussion. And at the end of the webinar, our experts will answer your questions. So remember to leave your comments and queries on the chat. And Chris, the stage is yours.
All right, thanks, Jerzy. Welcome, everyone. Happy to host another session of AI Waves with such great guests. Before we start, let me tell you what to expect today. We have 60 minutes, and we would like to divide the discussion into 4 sections. First, we would like to spend a few minutes on a general introduction to NFTs and Metaverse, so we can align the knowledge of all the participants. Then we would like to dive a little bit deeper and spend another 20 minutes on the discussion on NFTs, followed by another 20 minutes discussion on Metaverse. And finally, we would like to draw some conclusions that hopefully will help our participants decide what to do next with NFTs and Metaverse. And before we move to the first question and first discussion, I just wanted to highlight that we try to keep this webinar as business-oriented as possible. So I'll be inviting all my guests to try to anchor the discussions around the practical application of these technologies into business. Okay, I think we're ready to start. So to begin, let's try to define some critical terms and the terms that we will be using most of the time. So if I can ask my guests to maybe help me define what we should understand by NFT and by Metaverse, I think this will be a good starting point. Osnat, would you be okay to start and to tell us how you understand NFT and how our guests should look at NFTs?
I'm happy to. So I think one of the reasons I got excited by NFTs about 2 years ago and dove into the space was because I feel that NFTs are essentially the third biggest business case of blockchain. I think the first one was blockchain itself as an infrastructure, and it's been already adopted by a lot of big corporations. Second, I think, although it preceded, but in terms of mass adoption, is definitely anything to do with finance. So tokens, as you know them, as crypto or different kind of tokens you've came across that are not NFTs, are definitely the big second wave of mass adoption for blockchain. The third one is NFTs. And I deliberately want to split them up from crypto and say that NFTs can exist in their own right. They behave differently and they're not dependent on cryptocurrencies. And they're essentially what crypto does for finance, I think NFTs can do for a legal side of Web3. So they are, in absence of lawmaking, the law and order of ownership and rights and transactions and management within the digital space. So NFTs are essentially your way to manage how you own things, how you transfer things, how you operate commercially, and not with what, but the how. And it can, of course, live both for the digital space and the physical space. So it's a way to contract and execute contracts digitally.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. You've touched on a couple of points that I would like to go deeper. But before we do that, just to, again, align the knowledge of everyone, Irina, if you can help us define what you understand as metaverse, so people understand how to put NFT and metaverse maybe next to each other or together.
Thank you. It's a very good question. To be completely honest with the audience, we don't know what the metaverse is because it is something in the making, and there are dozens of definitions. What metaverse was meant in the crypto space by some of the thought leaders and builders is a unified space that is a virtual space that has Web3 infrastructure economy. It involves virtual worlds, virtual environments, as well as artificial intelligence, its own economy. It's a space for creators to experiment, and it is a space to bridge virtual economy with the real economy. However, we now see many metaverses, so many virtual worlds and gaming experiences call themselves a metaverse. So there is Big Country Metaverse, for example. There is Decentralized Metaverse, Roblox. For lots of young people, for teenagers, metaverse is Decentraland or Roblox, is the space where they spend the majority of their time. And it is really something, it's an active phase of evolvement and definition. And we'll see in the next 10 years what the metaverse will look like. NFTs are non-fungible tokens. Osnat gave some very good examples of what it can be and where it is heading to. But again, we are very early in the space. The space began with cryptocurrencies. NFTs came in as more crypto assets. And there are, again, hundreds of use cases. They can be used as loyalty programs, as digital art and certificate of ownership of real estate, virtual real estate, real estate, certificate of ownership of your real world assets as well as your virtual assets. It can be items traded in the e-commerce. So when you digitize something from the real world, you tokenize it in the virtual world, and then you transact and exchange this value on the web. So really, I guess by now we can stick to a definition that metaverse is a virtual space that bridges the real world and the digital world with the help of NFTs, crypto assets, and cryptocurrencies that help us build this virtual economy linked to the real economy.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. I couldn't agree more that this is still hard to define, but I like what you said, that this is a bridge not only between the real and virtual world, but specifically between the real and virtual economy. Because I think we will be talking a lot about virtual economy, the economy which is being built both on the NFT side and on the metaverse side. So now let's maybe focus for a while on the NFTs and practical application in business. If you look at the NFT world, you can see that big brands are actually entering this space. Visa purchases its first NFT, CryptoPunk. MasterCard files 15 NFT trademark applications in order to extend their services in Metaverse. Does it mean we should consider NFT mainstream already? And what do you think makes NFT so successful and popular at the moment? Genevieve, are you with us? Because you just disappeared. You are, great.
It just got loud where I was, so I was just going to move. I didn't know you were going to pass me the button. But I think that the key thing that we didn't talk about the whole metaverse NFT is the aspect of community building that it's allowing to happen. And this is why the brands are very interested about that. If you think about it right now, a lot of their dollars are spent on marketing, understanding how their customers feel. What are the customers wanting? What are they getting from them? How can I get my biggest fan to actually let me know what they are doing? So this is, I think, the first use cases that we're seeing in NFT, and why these organizations such as Nike, or even Starbucks are looking to invest in the space. That is one aspect of it. But if we think about the whole aspect of traceability, so I just got off a call where we were talking around traceability and the effect of the new laws by the EU, which is basically stating that anything coming into the EU has to be able to demonstrate lack of deforestation, lack of child labor or slavery as part of the creation of that product. So if your financial aspect from a country is based on that, this is where I think NFT, without that representation of an image, is data. It's data that goes with the product, which is almost a digital twinning of that product, which then provides the certification which is necessary. So we're seeing certification, reputation building, or individual, I could say identity. I don't really think of it as identity as a fully digital identity, but a subset of an individual identity, either who they are or what they like, which then can be consumed in a way from these different companies. And then the metaverse that they're creating is that digital realm of gamification on how they interact with those consumers.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Looking at the fact that so many companies are entering into NFTs, and as you mentioned, probably one of the reasons is that they want to extend their brand visibility into this field. Of course, when the market is going there, the VCs follow. So, and there is this thesis, I've seen it so many times in the internet, that NFTs actually have been created by VCs to generate income and to generate another way of pumping the valuations, making money quickly, without really focusing on a practical business implementation and return on investments.
You could say the same thing about DAOs. Everybody's calling something a DAO nowadays and raising fundings based on having a DAO. So I agree in some way there is a gold rush, but what happens is that there's also a validation. Like 2 years ago, for sure, gold rush, but there's a certain validation that is happening when you're looking at how Nike has actually been able to get product out and test that product with their community prior to giving it out. And if we think of communities, everyone wants to feel special. And that is the best way. You're communicating directly. And in terms of reach, your reach becomes much greater. I think that we are already seeing a slowdown in the whole NFT art, but it's always been the case. Not every artist is going to be famous. At the beginning, it was a novelty of it. We're going to see certain artists or certain projects which continue to be very popular and very, are very good at their marketing and getting everybody involved. But I'm also thinking, why can't I buy, like I can go and buy Pokemon card? I can buy an NFT, which is something I want to enjoy. Or I can get my certification for finishing a course. And that's what's coming next. We're going to see tickets and we're going to see proof of work. The biggest reason for a ticket, if we think about it, was what happened in Paris when, because unfortunately with the Ukrainian war, they had to move the game into Paris. And there were a lot of fake tickets, and the Parisian were not ready to deal with that. But if you imagine that those tickets had been issued as NFTs to an individual, that doesn't stop you from being able to transfer it, but it's unique. So that uniqueness, the digital aspect of it makes it. The challenge, of course, is the ramping up. And that's why I'm very excited with what's going on with Starbucks, because Starbucks is putting lots of money into this, which means the UI UX is going to change and we're going to see more adoption. You're muted.
Unmuting takes a while. Thanks for that. I'm happy to actually hear that you are that we are driving the discussion into the practical use cases or case studies. And I agree with you. There was a gold rush. Maybe there still is a little bit. And but I would like to talk about these practical applications to business that you have mentioned. I think the traceability that you have mentioned is a huge benefit, is a huge advantage that NFTs bring to the table. And how else do you think NFTs can actually improve existing digital products or can help build new digital products?
So I can use as an example what we've been doing, and we are actually working on a project where we're pushing the boundaries. So we talk a lot about DAOs with Treasury, but we don't talk about data. And what's becoming more and more clear is the advantage of blockchain is the fallibility, the trusted information about the data. Somebody might be cheating, but you can figure out the cheating. But at the time, this is the data that was entered. So then you can now start making decision making. And those decision making are captured as tokenized in ways. And those tokens, even though we're not calling them NFT, they don't represent anything else but the event. So that's where so once we get past the jargon, this is where we can start going into the utilities. And in order to get businesses to actually to start using these new technology, they have to be able to see their benefits. So we talked about traceability. I kind of mentioned the ticketing, but proof of attendance. I was here. I showed up and I had an interaction with you, and you confirmed that interaction is going to be also another mechanism for businesses or government to provide resources or financial. So where I see this is right now we're very much looking at the financial outcome first rather than looking at the process and how it's going to actually beget some sort of financial outcome.
Thank you. And Osnat, do you share this point of view?
I would love to add to something. So I think one of Genevieve's points earlier really resonated with me, and I think I found the following kind of explanation the easiest for anyone when you look at what an NFT is. Whether it has value in itself or is it a representation of external value. If you can imagine the JPEG world or the art world, really most of the value is in the visual imagery. But when you talk about businesses, most of the value is what the NFT stands for or allows you to do. So if you can replace the NFT with a big fat X, and the value remains as is, it means the value is somewhere else. Is the value significantly diminished by replacing the picture with that big fat text? Guess what? That was the value. And that's where it ends, really. And I think a lot of our work is really figuring out how to bring the NFT use cases to businesses and not try to educate businesses into the crypto or NFT world, because they won't. So we have initial trailblazers that came into the space, and they're trailblazers by nature, and they do this with every new thing that comes out. It's not just NFTs, but the vast majority of both businesses and consumers, by the way, you'll find that very little discussions in this space are about the actual consumers. The assumption is if we build it, they will come. But that's not that easy either, because you kind of need to think of NFTs in two ways. One way is the fact that it's a physical thing and NFT is an asset. But for vast majority of people, it's like the cloud. It's somewhere there in the background. They don't really care, and they shouldn't care about it. They should only care about how it gets them benefit, or how it saves them time, or how it eases their process or how it protects them from fraud. So I think the further we go along into mass adoption for businesses and consumers, the less it will be about the object, which is an NFT, and more about what it enables. And the other point I really loved that Genevieve made was about traceability and accountability. And I think this is the key driver for a lot of businesses that are doing mass adoption right now. So imagine the entire luxury industry everywhere where you have a big secondary market already. It really helps protect from fraud in the resale process, tickets as well, by the way. It helps trace ownership, and it's already adopted, and it's quite interesting to see how it's being adopted. Right now you can find NFC chips in Chanel bags that have NFT in them to help you trace ownership as the secondary market develops. And to this day, a lot of these brands that just started out already made more money from the secondary market, from the artist percentage share you get from an NFT resale than they originally did from the full price. So now you get into this space of, okay, so if we use NFTs, what will it do to the rest of our sales channels? What happens in the secondary market? Because now we're suddenly part of it. Does it mean we're accountable for something? Does it mean we're responsible? Does it mean we need a whole new group in our company that would manage that secondary market with us? Because now we're liable for something there. And it opens up a whole new space of business innovation that companies find themselves in when all they wanted is a nice NFT project to play with. So it's quite interesting to see where it takes them. And I think mass market will follow. The business cases are just abundant.
Mm-hmm. And when you brought thanks for that. When you brought the definition of NFTs, you mentioned about the application in the legal industry also, right?
Yes.
Is this something you can expand on?
Of course.
Practical.
So let's not forget that an NFT is essentially a smart contract, and it's a contract. So the initial uses might be very narrow. So the contract is not really a contract right now. It's more like a piece of execution software. But I think it will grow and expand and stretch into far more legal and kind of enabling formats where you will end up having a contract, which it already does to a point, right? It executes on what was agreed upon within the contract, but it will grow and expand into spaces which are not as straightforward. It won't be just, okay, here is part of the transaction, which is 5% royalty. Here is the fact that you can do this or can't do that, because already now we can see that there are conversations about IP ownership. There are conversations about can contracts be changed after they're issued? Can royalties be let go? Can you change and rent and resell stuff? So if the original contract didn't allow renting and suddenly you want to rent, can you? So there are a lot of new things happening, I think, not really legally, but more like commercially, with legal having to catch up. And the contract can be the key to do that, the smart contract.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. Irina, when Jerzy was introducing you, he mentioned a project you're working on, which is digital art for climate, if I remember correctly. So apart from maybe strict business application, I understand that you see a potential in actually this type of projects that can even help us save the planet or fight the climate change. Am I right?
So there is indeed a lot of interest in social projects, and as Genevieve mentioned, NFTs are also a great tool to build communities, and Web3 is community-centric. So it is really a space where people find each other with common interests, with passion, and what really unites us all is good causes. We want to, people in Web3 want to change this world to be a better place. And there is a lot of work on sustainability front, and it is actually both relevant for businesses and for communities. So we're working with United Nations, UN Habitat, on Digital Art for Climate. We're bringing together artists, mainly digital artists and youth climate activists, and giving them a platform, a marketplace where they can fundraise for their initiatives. And we're also giving them the opportunity to have their voice at a COP conference, which is usually a very exclusive event where it's very difficult to access. You need passes, you need accreditation. So somehow young people are excluded, lots of local communities are excluded. And in our first art competition, one of the winners was a group of teenagers from Nairobi, from Kenya. So they got monetary prize for that, and also the opportunity to sell NFT. And we're actually figuring out now what is the right mechanism to sell the NFT, what is the right price point. So everything is very much in the price discovery mode right now. And now the technology is also improving, because I come here from the side of technology company, right? It's really, we've built the infrastructure, and now we're working with platforms, marketplaces, games that are figuring out their business model and their economic models that are suitable for their business purpose, their social cause, and their users, or rather community members. So it's very dynamic space, and we're now enabling payments with fiat. So you can pay for NFT. First of all, the transactions on the blockchain that we are building are extremely low. So we're talking about 0.001 cent. So with $100, you can mint thousands and thousands of NFTs. They're not polluting environment, because we know that our chain is energy efficient. Plus, you don't need to be selling your NFT for $100, for $200, $1,000. You can sell it for $10, and that really lowers barrier to entry for younger people, and helping them to build their communities and fundraise in the way they want, and allows you to sell crypto stamps or postcards, things that are, we see in the physical form in the world, and they are affordable. So now we have the opportunity to have these affordable things on chain in a digital format. So a lot of things are entering this digital space. Also, a lot of things are revolutionizing inside of NFT technology. So Osnat said NFT is a smart contract. It is true in the Ethereum space. It is not true in the Polkadot space, for example, because for us, NFT is a standalone token. It has its own properties, so we do not use smart contracts at all. Our NFT is exactly that item that everybody wants to have and move to different virtual worlds and to different marketplaces and to different games. Because the idea is, how can you own your asset really and truly, and be able to monetize it over your lifetime and really pass it on as an inheritance. So we are really working on improving this data ownership and NFT ownership. So another exciting new feature that's coming in the next months is the bundling. So now we have the opportunity, for example, to tie NFT image, a music file, video file, and USDT. What this will bring in the space is, again, will be a big discovery for us as well, because now you can then take this independent NFT and stake it in DeFi, loan it, rent it using USDT, or then there will be other stable coins that will be linked to that NFT or other tokens. So it's really, we're very, very early in the space, and it's very hard to keep up with the technology updates, because like when you're focused now, I'm in Polkadot ecosystem, and then when I interact with people who are building on Ethereum and they're using smart contracts, like the logics often don't match, because they are working on some standards, we're working on some other standards, and there's still a lot of work in interoperability section, and also in education and coming to a common understanding. What are we trying to achieve and how to work with these platforms? Also, if we talk about multi-chain future, where everybody is heading to, how can we now combine these different NFT standards? And from technological point of view, integrations may be very complex, precisely because somebody is using very complex, very custom smart contract, and other platforms don't require that. So integrating this technology may take a lot of human resources and developers' resources.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. Do I get it right that, because you mentioned that you're also integrating it with fiat, let's say, do you believe that Metaverse is needed to drive NFT adoption or not necessarily? Let's imagine there is no Metaverse, all the projects failed. Do you think NFT will still stay with us?
Absolutely sure about this at this point, because NFT is a unique asset. It's like our identity or the certificates of education. And we need that because a lot of actually universities are switching to online teaching. They have their portals for students to interact. A lot of material is now digital. We used to have chalkboards. Now we have digital boards. Everything is on screen. And soon we will not be using maybe plain PowerPoint presentations, but rather an immersive environment where you can, launch, if you're in a physics class, launch an experiment that you just rendered in a 3D environment. So we can become there are digital twins now. Of course, it's much really simplified how smart cities work and all the models that we can recreate in order to test if it's feasible or not to build it in the real world. So for me, that's what this virtual space with NFT ownership is blending into. Just NFTs is really a tool that allows us for having unique objects and having that proof of ownership in the digital space.
Mm-hmm. Osnat, you mentioned about utility tokens. If you think about utility tokens, some applications of this type of tokens are that you can use the token only within a given network or community. Don't you think this is actually a way of trying to centralize decentralized world or idea?
This is not exactly how I would define token. I would say not tokens, NFTs, non-fungible tokens. When I talk about utility, I think it's a good idea to define what utility is, because as an ex-Brit, utility to me is paying gas and electrics, and this is not really the case. So I think the Web3 space kind of adopted the word utility to mean use or business value. So let's talk about NFTs as representations of business value. Maybe that's a clear explanation of what that would mean. So I think being able to attach an NFT to a business value, it can happen in two ways. One, if I actually created that NFT. So let's say, for example, I'm a software company, and instead of selling my subscription in a format of regular subscription, when I have onboarding costs, offboarding costs, and also marketing costs, and of course, a lot of fraud and a lot of cases where my software is being used in a piracy format. Now, suddenly I can issue an NFT, and it's a very good experience for the user. They can onboard and offboard easily, very painlessly. There's suddenly a secondary market, which really cuts my costs. I have a huge reduction of fraud. But that doesn't mean that the fact that I have an NFT could be just for the sake of that company. We've seen a lot of cases where, certain companies piggyback of other NFTs, right? So it can be the case for utility too. And I don't think it's a case of centralization. I think it really is the case of a better customer experience, first of all. And I think we're really obsessed with decentralization versus centralizations because we're Web3 folk. But for the consumers, the spirit of Web3 matters far more than the technical aspects of it. Do they have transparency? Can they have a much easier customer experience? Do they have control of what they own? Can they avoid being defrauded? This is the main thing for them. They could care less how it's really run behind the scenes. We care because we built it and we have a certain credo. They don't care. So we can have a case, for example, let's say Salesforce is switched to selling their subscription in NFTs. It doesn't prevent me deciding that whoever has a Salesforce NFT will even get a benefit from me because I want that audience and I can piggyback off that NFT as well. So I see a lot of cross-pollination happening where someone spent a lot of time and effort building a value to their own community through their own NFT token, and then someone else just piggybacking of it and creating their own value by having this defined community already built and created by someone else. I think it's a massive fluid space that's gonna explode, because suddenly you have a behavioral definitions of communities that is a completely new way of doing business, really.
Thank you very much. One last question regarding NFTs. When I look at the numbers, actually, what we are observing right now is that since January 2022, so over the last 9 months, we can observe 97% drop in the volume of transactions registered. So from $17 billion in January to less than $500 million in September. For many people, it means like this industry has already died. While we just listed down so many benefits and so many practical applications, how to understand that?
Would you mind if I comment on it?
Sure.
So there are two very good explanations. So I think what you just said just completely proves the point we've all made in this conversation, that NFTs are moving from having the value within the NFT for the sake of the NFT towards NFT being representative of other value that's far bigger, that's mostly driven by corporates at this point. That is far bigger than the value of the NFT itself as a resellable asset. That is one thing to mention. The other one is there's huge fragmentation in terms of how the numbers are collected. So I find that before it was a very easy way. Everyone just went and looked at OpenSea numbers and kind of said, fine, that's like 80-90%. The rest is, let's multiply it by 1.2 and we kind of have the market. That's not the case. Look at, there's a great example of the DC NFT marketplace, which is as similar as there is to like a picture JPEG marketplace, but it's owned by a big brand. So DC marketplace is massive, but it's a closed garden. None of the collectibles on the DC marketplace end up anywhere else. No one knows their numbers. You don't know their numbers. I don't know their numbers. But if you just go into the marketplace, they're selling hundreds of millions. It's just not in the numbers. And there are a lot of other places like that. So even in the JPEG world, we don't know the numbers, but the real value is outside of the JPEG world, and I think we all see this.
Thanks for that. Even though I asked the question this way, I agree with you. And after seeing how much the volume dropped, I looked into the number of transactions. And what was surprising is that compared to January, in September, there was almost the same number of transactions registered. So it actually proves your point that right now the world, businesses are moving into really practical application of NFTs with real actually reflection of the value from this while bridging from this real economy to virtual economy. So probably the hype is over. It's time to do something valuable with NFTs. Thank you very much. I think we can talk about NFTs still another 20 minutes, but we promised to focus on Metaverse. So just to summarize NFTs, so we talked a little bit about all the benefits: transparency, traceability, accountability, new ways of distributing royalties, security, prevention from frauds. And we came to the conclusion that there is a huge benefit it can bring to business, but it can also generate a social impact. And we also mentioned that the metaverse is not needed to drive NFT adoption, but the community is, because this is a community-centric product. So I think this is like a summary of what I've noted during our discussion. And if you don't have any other important or critical comments, I would like us to move to Metaverse.
I have one thing I'd like to bring is that we haven't yet uncovered it as a financial instrument also. Right now, there has been a lot of resistance because of regulation to fractionalization. and how do you bring back the pieces. But I also see them as an asset. And if I have an asset, why can't that asset pay me dividend? As soon as we start talking about that, we're going into the realm of regulated. And this is where I think the next thing is going to come in, because the banks are starting to understand this asset and being able to look at it. So I think the space, as was Irina said, is very, very new. And it's going to, I think, continue to blow. And bringing you to the thing of the metaverse, it's interesting, when we look at City Ventures and other big companies saying that the metaverse it's going to be worth about $13 trillion. And that's going to, and their view is that it's going to be the currency will be the NFTs. So really, we need to, there is a tie-in back to the metaverse. And what exactly do we mean by metaverse? For me, what we're doing is a form of metaverse. Now, how, we've seen the joke of what was done, I think, by Walmart or one of the retailers in terms of creating a metaverse, a shopping metaverse. And that is, to me, one aspect. But we can even think about it in healthcare. Imagine you need a special surgery and the doctor is thousands of miles away. It is a visual representation of what is happening in place and allowing him to be present without being present. So as soon as we break it down to those levels, is it something new? And then my question would be, why do we need blockchain technology? Because there is something in the Web3 as to why we're gravitating toward it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And you actually helped me open the second part of the discussion about the metaverse and bringing financial industry also into the discussion, because I'm kind of involved in the financial industry, so it's easy for me to bring a couple of examples. And when I was looking what big brands are doing in the metaverse, then if you look at, for example, American Express, JP Morgan, or Bank of America, the last one actually launched a training program using VR, using metaverse. The other two, JP Morgan and American Express, they opened virtual launches. While I understand that this is, again, similarly to NFT, a way of expanding the brand awareness and reaching new communities, making the brand stronger. You already said that there are some real-world problems that the metaverse can solve. So that was a very good example. Any other examples that you can think of that can actually somehow put aside all those projects which are not really solving the real world problems?
When we are avatars, we're all equal. So I think as a woman in this space, especially, but there are far less represented audiences than me. I think I live in Israel, so it's a startup nation. We're viewed as such. But what if I'm a Nigerian entrepreneur, or I'm an incredible middle class Filipino entrepreneur? There are so many kind of things that stand in the way of people behaving the same with everyone, and it's not always conscious. Many times it's done completely unintentionally. Even the best intentions, I think it creates a playing level field for bias-less communication between people, if nothing else. And I'm really excited about that. I find this, for me, in the human aspect of things, the biggest value of switching to kind of faceless because there's so many downsides to that, but I find this to be a huge benefit.
Also, in terms of inclusion, like what we've seen with Axie Infinity and Osnat mentioned the Philippines, a lot of actually people in the Philippines, especially women, have degrees in economics or 2 degrees, and they're struggling to find a job. As simple as that. And Web3 space and metaverses, many of the metaverses have their value proposition that they will bring more jobs and they will bring economic inclusion to people who need it the most. And we are still talking in the space about the unbanked population, about the development of African continent, about the development of places where there's no banks, there's no financial inclusion. And that's step number 1 for people to be active participants in the global economy. And also with NFTs as fundraising tools, as awareness tools, we saw many campaigns to fundraise for local activities. And I think just like we found each other on Facebook one day, and my background is urban planning. So back in the days, we were doing focus groups on Facebook with local communities to ask people, what do you like about the area you live, what you don't like, what you would like to improve. We did this in collaboration with local governments. The same things will come via NFTs and Metaverse, and hopefully will give us real tools, the real economic tools to solve these local problems.
So I wanted to add something to that. I absolutely agree with you, but I think that one of the things that we need to deal first is with the digital divide. So we talk about being able to bring the technology to Africa, or we don't even need to go as far as Africa. We can go in 2-3 miles from our city centers. If we're in London, you can be in the city center. So what I think is absolutely needed is the education, not about the how, but the what or the words. Because imagine you walk in somewhere into a party and somebody says a word such as NFT or metaverse and you have no clue about it. Or what you have heard has been, because unfortunately what the news is usually about exaggeration or creating negativeness. And so if we want to be looking at financial inclusion, both for marginalized community or underrepresented groups such as women, is we need to also look in ways as how we change the metaverse. Because I think right now the gamification is still very much in the style of war games. So that to me is something that's going to take place. Obviously, it's great to see that it's being used as a mechanism for training. I actually, about 6 years ago, I got to walk on the moon on a metaverse with the European Space Agency. And that was, I mean, I can't tell you, I was scared. I had a place where I was supposed to jump and I couldn't jump because I thought I'm going to the abyss. We need to have people be able to, I can see this as a very great way for travel, to get people to understand the communities with which they are working, because that is going to be one of the challenges. We have accessibility for travel, but now because of technology, we don't need to travel as much. Some of us don't even need to leave our house for the day, which means how are we interacting and how are we dealing as human beings, which then means what are our empathetic, what's empathy that we have to others. And that is something that we need, as we move forward, really need to be looking at these things and really create the inclusion that is necessary to have others be able to participate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. I think I agree with you that there is a great opportunity in terms of inclusivity or actual equality. But don't you think that this opportunity comes together with a threat that those who we can potentially bring or for example, those people that we can help get banked, because we've been talking about the financial inclusion and unbanked population, and those that we can help find a job that Irina mentioned, because they're educated but they don't have an access to the pool of jobs, can be still pushed aside by the same mechanism that we experience in a real world. Because we mentioned also some luxury goods that someone can buy a channel product and can put NFT. Don't you think that these communities that will be designed from start to be inclusive will be quickly divided into high-profile communities, low-profile communities, and the businesses will again follow those with money? How can we prevent that?
How can we prevent the true nature of man is unfortunately of mankind is really the question. I think that we can't use that as a mechanism of not doing inclusiveness. I don't agree that financial inclusion is about a bank account. It is access to market, making money. We don't all need to have a bank account to be able to pay for our groceries. We just need cash, and we need a job that we can do it at. So those are, as you say, challenges, but we are also beholden to actually look at debunking. We have learned from the last 20 years. So we should take the lessons learned from the last 20 years and look to apply them. And I believe that unless we bring those diverse individuals into the realm, we are not going to design something which is different. So there's always risk, but the risk of failure in this is trumped by the risk of actually success and getting to what we say as human that we want to have, which is better happiness for everyone. And so we who are at the forefront have to take the step to make those changes happen. And we just can't just say, well, it's going to be difficult. If we don't, as you said, we're going to have those divisive societies.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love the fact that, again, this technology can bring the social impact, but if we can right now move a little bit into business and how businesses can benefit from Metaverse, how businesses can enter the Metaverse. Irina, if you can help me answer this question, and maybe starting with another concern that I have. Right now, mainly big tech is investing into Metaverse, right? Because it requires a lot of money. And don't you think that because of that, they will spoil the industry and it will be hard to build practical, business-oriented applications where there is real return on the investment because of the fact that they will be just investing enormous money without looking for a return on investment?
Well, businesses are, there is a lot of interest, to answer your first question. Just last week, I was in Amsterdam at the Global Women in Leadership Conference, and there were women from companies like Siemens, DHL. These are the companies that are not very into the metaverse and NFTs. However, there is a lot of interest for companies to understand how can we be part of it? And for companies, some businesses, it's very difficult to bring them into this because of the nature of their business. But a lot of retail, e-commerce, we also spoke about trust. And the trust in industries like fashion is falling dramatically in the real world because fashion, there is an issue with the labor they're using to produce their goods. There's an issue with like millions of collections a year and millions of items and waste of water and resources to produce fast fashion and to impose the trends that people really don't need. We don't need to consume so much clothes. So that's why the digital fashion is on the rise, and influencers in the digital space can use something new every day that doesn't require us to waste so many real-world resources. E-commerce, logistics, as I mentioned, loyalty programs, everything starts, the best way to start is to start from something simple, like launch your collection, and you already have a base of customers, and you, as a business, know their pains better than anybody else. So tech companies can guide you in terms of what is available right now and what can potentially be built in the short term and in the long term. But it's really up to a business to give a feedback of what are the issues they need to solve. And also what I've noticed that not many people in the world of business, in the world of corporations, have even a wallet. And the first thing to have, the first door into the Web3 is your personal wallet. So we've spent some time explaining, MetaMask, other tools, other wallets, and it really starts from even employees and the management of the company getting into the space and getting an experience of opening that wallet, claiming an NFT, owning it, then starting to maybe enter Decentralized, opening an office in Decentralized, for example. Many companies start there. They find already a metaverse space that has a lot of visitors. So they run trials there. You can even ask to host an event. So if you don't want to buy and you don't want to have an initial investment and commit to something, you can partner with other companies who already have a space, go rent that space, run an event there, and see if there is an interest. Everything is really a trial and understanding where that new model, that new environment, new community can support your business and how your business can support them to create this win-win situation. So, and in terms of big tech investing, well, we see a lot of startups because really innovation and disruption, it comes from startups. Or big companies, they have a startup on the side, which they can support financially or with human resources or with technical resources. But what I'm seeing generally from startups, you as an entrepreneur, you need to have a lot of passion. You need to have a lot of persistence if you want to succeed. And this is relevant and true for any type of business, because if you want to launch an innovative product, you need to be 10 times better than anybody else. You need to really stand up on the market in order to be successful. But in Web3 space, because it's so innovative, there is still enough money, especially we're dependent still on the bear and bull market. On the bull market, you could launch a collection and you can raise a startup capital to start your own venture with that simple one NFT collection. We will hopefully see that again, the capital flowing into the space that can support young creators and entrepreneurs, so they can at least raise an initial capital to start something. But this is also a space that attracts a lot of talents. Incredible people in all these communities. When I joined Polkadot, this space drives you, the community drives you just by the quality of conversation, by the quality of professionals that enter the space from very different areas and very different industries, and really passionate people, passionate about change. So I do believe there is plenty of opportunities, but you need to believe in yourself. You need to believe in your product, and you can't give up. Like if you launch something and it fails, well, try again, do something different, change. Study the space, study the audience well. Many people are doing it on the side as they're still keeping the job, and they succeed. Maybe not immediately, maybe not in a month, not in a year, but in 2 years they succeed to launch a successful startup. Because startups do need resources, but there is more capital coming from other firms, from other angles. And the big tech companies, they are actually very much interested in talent, in fresh ideas, in innovation, and that capital can easily go to startups if you have a great idea.
Thank you. Osnat, your take on this?
I feel like I'm going to be the devil's advocate here, and I'm going to say there is no product market fit between what is the Web3 metaverse to what people actually need. Now, we keep thinking that we represent the broader audience. Guess what? We're not even close, not even by a mile. I am priced out of using the metaverse experience properly, and I'm a CEO of a funded company. I'm priced out. So my version of being able to play around in a metaverse, a decentralized Web3 metaverse, not Roblox, okay? Although Roblox by far is the best metaverse out there right now. But I cannot afford proper Oculus 2, and I cannot function with this massive thing because I have eyeglasses. And all of this, before I even come into the experience, there's no desire. It's like I'm forcing myself to do this because I know it will be interesting because I'm in the industry. But if you think of a regular person that's just kind of curious, they still want the screen. They don't want something to be put on their face where they're detached from the environment. We still have, and this is just the physicality, I'm not even talking about the virtuality of it. There's a big mismatch between talking about everything that's VR and AR, which is old news, and the metaverse. Suddenly everything is the metaverse. No, Minecraft is not the metaverse in this context. Roblox is not the metaverse. They actually achieved mass adoption. They're amazing. They're great. And whenever you hear the news of a big brand doing metaverse because they have a place in Roblox, they're just doing good business. This is not what we guys say what we mean when we say metaverse in Web3. So metaverse in Web3, do we really need the metaverse to be decentralized? I still haven't seen any proof of that. There's a big difference between, do we need financial control to be decentralized, which is a big yes. Do we need asset control decentralized? A big yes. Do we need the virtual construct to be decentralized? Why? There is no explanation I've heard that was good enough. And the reason why big tech is doing this is very simple. You know what? This is the only KPI in Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. At the end of the day, it's cloud consumption. And let me tell you, cloud consumption of metaverse is amazing, amazing. So anything that creates cloud, and this is their business, it's fine. This is a business construct, right? So cloud consumption for metaverse is incredible. It's wonderful. So of course it's space they would drive and invest in. So please tell me how a decentralized metaverse, which is what we call metaverse, is any better than Roblox. I don't know.
You mentioned about the AR, and and also about the fact that you don't see a clear product market fit when we talk about the metaverse. Don't you think that we are trying to skip the stage or jump in front of the gun and trying to move into the metaverse without really mastering the AR? And in terms of AR, we are much closer to find the product market fit, or we already found in several aspects.
So what is the reason to make it decentralized then? I'm still asking the same question.
I think that sorry, I was going to go.
Go ahead, please.
This whole Web3. Are we in a marketing vortex? It's not to say that metaverse and the decentralization of that metaverse as a space does not need to happen, but the interaction could be what needs to be decentralized. In that, how do you? And actually, it scares me, the fact that we'll have too many metaverse, too many spaces, and how are they being policed, and how are you also making sure that the bad behavior and somebody doesn't go from one world to the other and misbehave. But where I think that there is a trend, which is the transactions that happen between individual in this P2P, but not so much in between you and I, but the trust of what has happened in terms of the value chain, which then creates that transaction. So that's where, for me, I'm accepting the NFT aspect when I start looking at it. And NFT right now cannot do that because you don't have the aspect of almost like a Merkle tree. How do I write information into an NFT that you then can add information, and Irina can add information, and we are able to then see that whole full view? I think then once we have that, that is when you can see in a decentral why a decentral land would be needed, but that decentral land itself does not need to be on a decentralized server. And one of the things I would suggest is Hollywood has been doing metaverses for a long time. Roblox and all these games are in ways a metaverse. It's a gaming. Now, training for gamification can be, I think one of the airlines the other day announced that they were onboarding another 2,000 people, and they were going to be able to train them to the metaverse much faster and cheaper. So if organization can do that, then that's something. But I think it's just that we've just decided to put everything the same way a couple of years ago. What's it called? IR4. So the whole revolution was everything. You had some kept saying it's blockchain, some kept saying it's AI and AR. So I think we've gotten there, and this boiling up is going to eventually cause certain things to fall out because it doesn't make sense, but others to continue in terms of the development.
Thank you, Irina. One last comment regarding Metaverse.
Yeah, decentralization is really interesting topic because definitely not everything must be decentralized. And I always like here to go back to the father of the Web3 concept and who coined the term, Dr. Gavin Wood. And the whole idea of decentralization was about you owning your data and being on the being able to monetize this data if you like, because all this decentralization comes from the fact that big platforms like Facebook, they own our data. We give them our data. We have no traceability, no visibility, how this data is used, how our information is either traded, monetized on the other side, et cetera, et cetera. So opacity of traditional social networks and the use of our data is the concern of the development community. Hence, they decided to start building new layer on the internet because Web3 is a layer that brings us kind of back to peer-to-peer, to the possibility of us to exchanging information in a fairer way. And there are many solutions now being built in terms of each user being able, like what I mentioned about NFTs, if you can own this NFT, you can have your data stored, recorded in that NFT, and you can decide if you want to rent your NFT for 6 months to any social media you're using and then bring it back. And on the blockchain, you have all the records of, how it's been done. You can ask for royalties, et cetera, et cetera. There are multiple ways, and we should remember always that decentralization is a term, like development term, and it goes back to the programming of protocols mainly. That doesn't need to, not necessary communities need to be decentralized, etc. And Metaverse many times is divided from NFTs and Web3, like this training in the Metaverse. I'm pretty sure they do not have any economy there. They don't have NFTs, so it's just a virtual environment. And we're going back to how we initiated this discussion. So what is the Metaverse? What do we call the Metaverse? Many people have different definitions of it and different use of it. And we need to define that just virtual worlds that are giving us different interaction experience and platforms with economies, crypto economies.
Thank you very much. I think it's time for questions. We still have a couple of minutes left, and I would like to give our audience a chance to ask the questions. So, Jerzy, I'll let you continue the discussion.
Sure, yes, thank you. Big thank you to all of our great speakers. I think it was a really interesting discussion, and all of the attendees got some great insights. So let's see the questions. The first one is from Mohammed. What is the role of DI apps in the metaverse? So who would like to answer that one?
I'll take a shot.
Okay.
I'll take a shot at it. I mean, it's really, the way I would only think about it is if you're building a new weapon in one of the games, could be where you have a new experience. So I think that we're seeing where people are trying to create those experiences because the dApps is nothing else but sitting on the platform and giving access to something. So it's a very hard question to answer, but I think that since these are open source system or open core system in ways, it is inviting others to participate in creating experiences there. That's the only way I see it. But it is not going to be the same way as dApps as we see on blockchain technology. And it kind of goes back to the question we asked before, is there a real need for these things to be decentralized? So dApps are decentralized apps. So it's more apps at this point, unless somebody can provide a reason why you would need a decentralized world or environment.
Yes, it's also specifically a question about decentralized intelligent apps. So also incorporating artificial intelligence in here. So another interesting aspect. But yes, I agree with you, Genevieve.
I can give you a different example just from my past. My first startup was, and this is going to be very technical, so I apologize. It was semi-supervised, decentralized AI for clinical trials data. So this means that different people held data sets, but they were not allowed to share the original data points on the data set for obvious reasons, because it belongs to different people, and it's a huge, horrible maze of laws and regulations. But this is invaluable data. So what can you do with the decentralized data sets that can never meet? You can do federated learning, and you can create new insights without giving each other access to data. So this is a good example, but it's not specific to a metaverse. So how do you create value together without transferring raw data to each other? That was just my use case from about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Not specific to the conversation maybe, but it was a good example maybe.
Yeah, it's a really good example. I personally can't think of any example specifically in the metaverse, but Irina, do you have something? Yeah,
Maybe
you're unmuted.
Guys.
Yeah, maybe let's move on then. We don't have much time left. So another question was from Akram. If you are a media production company, our content is currently on YouTube. How can we monetize our content on Metaverse? What do you think? Any thoughts?
Think about. Actually, directly on YouTube, probably no way to do that, because YouTube does not support any token and is not in any metaverse. But you can share your content on platforms like Subsocial, for example, or any other virtual platforms where you can register your account, you can connect your wallet, or voice.com. Voice.com platform is a platform for creators. There are several platforms created by journalists, content creators that allow you to connect your wallet and ask for tokens and monetize your content. I wouldn't say that it's hugely popular at the moment, and you need to be aware that, of course, the following on such platforms is not as you won't find so many followers as you find on YouTube, but it's good to be early.
I think there is a good example in what's happening now in the music space. It's not necessarily video content, but it's the same model. So in the music space, there is a huge explosion of how do we bring music to the metaverse. And I think video will just kind of follow suit. So there is a lot to be said about rights management in NFTs. So if you have your own video content and you want it to be lended for productions, for video content on the metaverse, it does require you to leave YouTube and do it somewhere else. So you need to actually find a platform that allows you to attach an NFT, I would say, to your content. It does not mean that you have to build your own platform. I think a lot of metaverses, actually decentralized metaverses, have that infrastructure as part of the creator offering now, because they recognize this is how they're going to make their money too. They're going to get the rev share. So definitely look into the metaverse creator policies, and if you can actually have NFTs issued together with some metaverses, if you're big enough. If you're very small, you will really struggle. No one is really in this kind of bear economy. People are only looking to partner with big companies. So it's a struggle to get attention from someone like the Sandbox if you're very small to partner.
Okay, thanks, Osnat. I think we can move on to the next question. We have quite a few left. I don't know if we can manage all of them, but let's see. So the next one I see from Kenneth. What are the legal risks of NFTs? Osnat, do you think you can handle that one?
Yeah, of course. So NFTs are contracts. So it's very interesting to note that when it comes to laws, NFTs are global, laws are local. So you have very big disparities in regulations and laws to do with anything blockchain related, crypto related, NFT related. So for example, UK is actually very advanced when it comes to NFTs. There's been really incredible precedent. There's been a ruling that NFT is recognized as an asset, and hence someone stealing an NFT is a regular theft. You can go to jail for it in the UK. And also trial notifications, which is incredible to me. So I think that's the same in the US. So where if you have a crypto wallet, if you're an entity and you're even anonymous, but you're being sued, a notification of you being sued can just be airdropped into your crypto wallet, and it's legally recognized in the UK as if you've been notified. So if there's a ruling and you didn't show up, you're still going to be held accountable. I think when you create an NFT, if you've created an NFT where there's a monetary aspect to that NFT, and if you've created an NFT where money can be stolen by you or someone else when it's being minted, you're liable, it's fraud. If you've created an NFT that is not cyber secure, you could be liable. And the laws are really developing in the space. So you need to be watching what you do. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, don't do it yourself. There are a lot of companies that are cyber companies, that are NFT companies. Even if you pay a little bit and mint it through someone who's far more experienced, it's much better than taking the risk of it being hacked or your customers losing money. So I think you need to constantly be kind of looking at this. So there's the technical cyber aspect of it, and there's the legal ownership side of it, I would say.
Thanks, Osnat. I guess that partly answers that question. It's a very broad question to answer. Probably it would need another session, a whole session for it. Okay, so we have a few questions from Damian. Maybe let's try the first one. Which elements are currently missing to reach broader mass adoption for Web3? So what's missing for the broader adoption? Genevieve?
Yeah? I would suggest that knowledge is the first one. And then we also need to have the infrastructures. If we were to, we talked about how, so Osnat brought, I believe correctly, this whole aspect of, like the Microsoft and Google are looking for the space that is being used on their web. We keep talking about becoming more green. We don't have enough technical power to actually be able to do everything that we want to do with Web3. Not everyone has access to smartphone or reliable data, and many software are not offline. And how do you secure, so cybersecurity is another big issue. So to me, we need to solve these basic things. And, it's in some ways, we are a special community because we're pretty small in terms of the effect. But in order to get to mass adoption, those are basics. And of course, my favorite thing is we're going to have to get better UI and UX, so better user experience in using those tools. I still find myself lost at time before doing a transaction. I have to really pay attention, because if I do something wrong, I can't take it back. So how can you make this mass adopted if you cannot have recourse?
So we're actually tackling the mass adoption in Also Mine. So we see that to really have significant mass adoption, we need to admit two things to ourselves. One, the mass population is not going to go and do a master's degree in NFT technology. That's just not going to happen. Two, it will be unfortunately driven mostly by corporates. And this is very hard for hardcore Web3 developers that kind of grew up in the crypto and now they're in the NFT. So that core audience really is also a bit like anti-big brand, anti-establishment, not for, sometimes even just for the sake of being anti, but mostly because they were hoping it will be done for the people, by the people, and so on. And now suddenly, especially in this market, it's all going to be coming from big brands, and it kind of feels a bit like a sellout. But if we kind of maybe park our egos on that a little bit as Web3 people and say, okay, we don't care that it's driven by big brands, as long as it kind of keeps to the same main credo of what it's supposed to be. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to redigest and simplify and create a comparable space where people can and businesses can actually look at NFTs and see the actual description of all the value that it's going to create, when it's going to happen, have real user feedback that have that NFT, does it really happen? And same goes for businesses. Businesses are not going to change their entire strategy just so that they will have NFTs. If we don't create a bridge for them to use NFTs in their existing pricing methodology, in their existing business practices, with their existing partners, most businesses won't be able to use it, even though it's an amazing business case for them commercially. So the only way, I think, for us, besides the tech capabilities, which I think is a massive hindering point, massive. But let's say this is still enabling business for most kind of Western world. We have enough to, let's say, not do metaverse, but do NFTs. We still need to stop looking at NFTs as a degree people have to achieve. NFTs is not some holy grail of learning for regular people. It's the cloud. It's the backend technology. And if we create a space where people can actually use stuff instead of trying to first understand what it is they need to know to use it, and if we can bring it down to layman's terms, people will use it. It's a great technology. They don't need to know exactly how it works. It doesn't matter. It matters to us. It really doesn't matter to them. And it shouldn't. It's fine.
Thank you, Osnat. I really hate to stop the discussion, but there are a few more questions left, but unfortunately we have run out of time. So if you have if you still want to get your answers, I think you can reach out directly to our speakers on LinkedIn, for example, and they will be happy to get back to you with some answers. Also, we'll write down all of your questions and think about them when planning for the next session. So maybe your answers will be answered during the next panel. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some insights that help you understand the NFTs and Metaverse, how they can work for you in your business. And yeah, once again, big thank you to all of the speakers. And remember to check your inboxes for the recordings. And stay tuned for the next edition of AI Waves. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Have a nice evening.
Bye.